Hello, y'all. What's up? Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about section 2.1. It is on page 60 and 61 of your workbook. All right. So we finished topic 1 right before fall break, and now we're going to go into topic 2. All right. So this entire topic deals with quadratics. Okay. So basically, everything that we do is going to have a square in it now because a quadratic has an exponent of 2. All right. And all of these graphs are going to be either a U shape or an N shape, which we call a parabola. Okay, so a U shape or a shape like an N. All right, so the very first thing we're going to talk about today is vertex form. So first, we need to know what vertex form is. So vertex form of a quadratic looks like this. Y equals A parentheses X minus H squared plus K. So this is the general form of a quadratic in vertex form, okay? So these letters all mean something different, all right? But a lot of this stuff we've already learned in the first topic, all right? So the vertex, the reason this is called vertex form is because it's really easy to find the vertex, okay? The vertex is where the graph starts to turn, all right? So the vertex is always the letters H and K, okay? And the vertex is basically the turning point of the graph. Okay, so the turning point of the graph, right? There is something called the axis of symmetry in a quadratic. Basically, it splits the graph in half. Okay, and it goes right through the middle, and it'll always go through the vertex. So we are going to say a vertical line that crosses the vertex. And the axis of symmetry is always the same thing, okay? It's always x equals h. So whatever your h value is right here, that's what your axis of symmetry will be, okay? And then the last thing that you can get from these graphs, from these quadratics, is what we call a maximum or a minimum. You either have a high point or you have a low point. Okay, if the graph is positive, so if the equation is positive, then you have a minimum, okay? Minimum. If the graph is negative, then you have a maximum. And you will see what I'm talking about in just a second, okay? And the max or min is always the vertex. So whatever the vertex is, that is also your maximum or minimum value. All right? So that's what we're going to do in this section. We're going to be able to find all of these different things. Okay? So let's do this very first problem. It says transform a quadratic function. Describe the transformations of the parent function. We've already done this. Right? We did this in the very first topic. So we have this graph. Now, a normal graph, a basic quadratic, you don't have to draw this black one on your notes, but a basic quadratic will look like this. So I'm going to draw it dashed. So this is the basic graph. That's what a normal just x squared looks like. So y equals x squared would look like that black one. What we want to do is move it based on what this says. Okay? So just like we did in the last chapter, this number on the inside moves the graph left or right. But since it's positive, it is going to move right 2. So this point right here moves to the right 2. The negative in front flips the graph upside down. So this graph of this equation is going to look just like that. Okay? And you all have Desmos. You can type it in. Okay? But the 2 moves it left. The negative flips it upside down. Okay? So this graph reflect over x-axis. That's a terrible S. That should say axis. And left 2. Those are the only things that happened. It went left 2 and it reflected over the x-axis. All right? We're going to do the exact same thing for this second one. But now there's 2 things that are going to happen. Okay? So the one on the inside, this one, it's on the inside, so it is going to move to the right 1 because you do the opposite. This 2 on the outside makes it go up 2. So start at the origin, move right 1, up 2, put a point. Now, since there's not a negative in front, this is positive, the graph is going to go up. So you see the difference. This is positive in front, so it goes up. This one is negative in front, so it goes down. Okay? So it's the exact same thing we did in the very first chapter. Right? Just now they're all quadratics. They're all going to have a square. There's no more absolute value on it. Okay? The second question looks like this. Now it says determine key features. All right? So they gave us this equation right here. And they want us to find all this stuff. The good news is we don't really have to do any math to find these things. Okay? So the vertex. We need to find what I call the axis of symmetry, AOS. We need to figure out, does it have a max or min? Max or min. And then it also wants to know what's the domain and what's the range. All right? So we're going to find all these things. So the vertex, just like we wrote up here, the vertex is always the letters H and K. So all we need to do is pick out what letter is, or what number is where H is and what number is where K is. Remember, you always do the opposite of the number in parentheses. So in this problem, the H would actually be -4 because it was +4 in parentheses. The K is a -5 in this case. So I know that the point where this graph starts to turn like this is going to be -4, 5 in this problem. Okay? The axis of symmetry is the line that goes right through the middle of the graph. We don't have a graph, but we know that x always equals h, and we just figured out that h was -4. So in this problem, x equals -4 is going to be my axis of symmetry. So that's the line that splits the graph in half. Okay? This graph, this equation, excuse me, has a negative in front. So that means it's going to go upside down. It's going to be an N shape. And whenever it's negative, it has a maximum value. Notice that point is the highest it gets. So this problem is going to have a maximum because it's negative. So it goes up, or excuse me, it points down. Okay? And that point is always the vertex. -4, -5. The max or min is always the vertex. All right? So those three things we didn't have to do any math for. The domain and range is a little bit trickier just because you don't have a graph. So to make our lives easy, we're going to sketch a little graph. I already know my vertex is -4, 5. So -1, 2, 3, 4, -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my graph is going to go like that. And then there's a negative in front, so it goes down. So here's what my graph looks like. And again, you have Desmos. Right? So you don't have to do it by hand. You can just type it in and see what it says. So remember, domain is the x values. This graph goes this way forever, and it goes that way forever. So my domain is -infinity to +infinity. The range is up and down. The highest this graph goes, the maximum value, like we just talked about over here, the maximum value on the y-axis is -5. And it's a filled-in circle, so it gets a bracket. And then it goes down forever. Then it goes down to -infinity. Okay? So we really didn't have to do any math there for that problem. Right? It was kind of laid out for us. The next problem, unfortunately, we're going to have to do some math. All right? So here's the next one, example 3. Now it gave us the vertex and a point. And it is our job to write the equation. Okay, so we know that vertex form looks like this from up above. I'm just copying the same equation. And it gave us a vertex and it gave us a point. Okay, this is typically one of the harder things for people to do. So the vertex, we already know, is the letters H and K. Okay, we also know that any point, any random point that I pick is X and Y. Right, just any point always has an X first and a Y second. So we were given H, K, X, and Y. What we don't have is A, right? We don't know what A equals. That's the only letter I don't know in this whole problem, because I know H, I know K, I know X, I know Y. So we're going to take these 4 numbers, and we're going to plug them into this equation so that we can figure out what A is. All right? So Y was -1, A, we don't know. X is -2 minus H is 1, K is -4. And it has a square on it. So now we just solve this. Start in the parentheses. -2 minus 1 is -3. Squared minus 4. -3 squared is -3 times -3, which is 9. And I just put the 9 first because it looks normal, right? That's the way you're used to seeing it, minus 4. And now solve this thing. So I'm going to come over here so I can finish solving it. We would add 4. So that would be 3 equals 9a. Divide by 9. 3 divided by 9 is the same thing as 1/3. So now I know what a is, which is what I needed to find. But the problem says, what is the equation, right? It doesn't ask me just what a is. It says, what's the equation? So to finish this problem, I'm going to take this a value, and then I'm going to take this vertex, and I'm going to plug them back into this to get my final answer. So for this problem, my final answer is y equals 1/3 x minus 1 squared minus 4. Notice that x and y are in my final answer. So that is the basic equation. And now it looks exactly like this problem up here, right? I plugged in a, which in this case was negative. Down here, it just happens to be 1/3. Okay, so x and y have to stay in the equation, but everything else will go away. That was really quick, so feel free to pause it, stop it, do what you need to do, okay, to make sure you get that written down. All right, so plug in all those numbers. We got 2 problems left, 2 examples. The next one is everybody's favorite. I know you all might not believe me, but these are everybody's favorite kinds of problems. You know, these kind like word problems with graphs. Everybody loves the word problems. See, Miss Davenport agrees with you. She said, woo! So, sidetrack. Look at this picture. We were given a graph, right? We have this point down here, and we have this point up here. One of these is the vertex. One of these points is the vertex. It's either the max or min, right? Which in this case is a max. So this problem has given us a vertex of 210, where the graph starts to turn. It also gave me a random point of 0, 4. This problem is exactly like the last one. The vertex is h and k. A random point is x and y. It is the exact same thing as what we did before, right? There's no difference. So here's vertex form. And again, plug all these numbers in where they go. All right, just plug them in wherever they need to go. So y is 4. A we don't know. X is 0. H is 2. K was 10. All I did was plug these 4 numbers in where they belong. So now we solve this. 0 minus 2 is -2. -2 squared is 4. 4a plus 10. Subtract 10. -6 equals 4a. Divide by 4. A equals -3 halves. 6 divided by 4 is -3 halves. But that's not what the question asks. It didn't ask what a is. It wants to know the equation. So then take the vertex, take this number, and plug them into this equation to get our final answer. So y equals -3 halves, x minus 2 squared plus 10. And we are finito, finished, kaput. Capiche? Kaposh, kapush. All right, we got 1 problem left. Well, 2 examples, but 1 type. Okay, you'll notice on here it says put in standard form. We're not going to worry about that right now. We might do that later. We might not. We'll see. Okay, so look at example 5, last one. Now it's told you what the transformations are. You just need to write the equation, okay, in Vertex form. Again, we're not going to worry about that part. So it has to look like this. Okay, so it has to look like this when we're done, is our goal. Okay, so first things first. It told us that it moved 2 to the right. Remember, the thing that moves it to the right is always H. It said it moved 5 down. The letter that moves it down is K. So we know what H and K are. So Y equals, they didn't tell us anything about A, so we're just not going to worry about it. Right? A is positive. It didn't say it was reflected. Since it's not reflected, it just stays A. 2 to the right. Normally, right 2 means a plus 2, but we have to put it in parentheses. So we have to do the opposite. Whether you take it out of parentheses or put it in parentheses, you always do the opposite. So minus 2, down 5 for K means minus 5. Okay, because H moves it left or right, K moves it up and down. Just like here, right? H moved it right 2, K moved it 10 up. That's how we ended up at 210. So the H moves right or left, the K moves up and down. All right, we got the last one. This one adds one thing to it. So now it says 1 down and a reflection over the x-axis. So we know it's going to look like this. So now it says reflect over the x-axis. So flip up and down. Whenever it flips, that means this, there has to be a negative in front because the negative reflects it upside down. Notice that this graph doesn't say anything about left or right. Correct? It only says down. So that means H in this problem in green, the H value is 0 because it doesn't say anything about it. So you can write x minus 0 if you want. That's perfectly fine. It says it goes 1 down. So 1 down means minus 1. This answer is perfectly acceptable. You could also write the same answer as, instead of x minus 0, you could just write x. Those two answers are exactly the same. X minus 0 is the exact same thing as x. Okay? So that is our 2.1 vertex form of a quadratic notes. All right, you all have your Math Excel assignment that should be assigned. Go for it. Good luck. If you have questions, come find me. Peace.